Live tonight from the virtual Darlington Raceway in Darlington, South Carolina, we say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to the NRE Power Systems 200 and Round 7 of the NASRA Triple M Pulling Truck Series live on Racecraft TV. We're happy that you're spending your Friday night with us here from the beautiful virtual Darlington Raceway. We're alongside Ian Fisher and with Zach Johnson down in the virtual production trailer. My name is Joshua Lee, and in we come to one of NASCAR's most historic circuits, the oldest track now on the NASCAR calendar, and the surface is just about as old as this facility. It rips those tires apart, which is really going to play into the stage racing that we're going to have tonight.
Yeah, they call it the Lady in Black, and for good reason, Josh. You see the outside walls marked with the paints of many a driver that have scraped that wall trying to get out of the round in this tricky 1 mile and a third track. It's egg-shaped because of the guppy pond that was on the outside of the backstretch. I think we all know that story. Another interesting fact as well is that dotted line you see right now on your screen. Below that actually used to be the racing line, and up top was a runoff area, and somebody found out one day actually the runoff area was faster, Josh. So we'll see which one of these drivers tonight can find the fastest way around Darlington and end up in victory lane.
Yeah, and this track originally on iRacing was one of the only tracks that we saw multi-groove racing and running right up next to that wall, and actually being faster when this track was added towards the beginning of the iRacing service. And this season of the NASRA Triple M Pulling Truck Series has been an interesting one to watch, because so far this season only one driver still has 2 wins, and those came at Martinsville and at Sonoma for Ted Wade. But Talladega, Nashville Superspeedway, Homestead, and Daytona had 4 different race winners. And tonight we're at Darlington, and there is a bit of a schedule mishap. We've been showing September 9th round as Eldora for the last couple of weeks. That will be at the Atlanta Motor Speedway. We'll be running the race at Eldora for the All-Star race, which is coming up in 1 week's time. So we have a break between points paying rounds. We'll go All-Star racing from the dirt track of Eldora next week. But looking at the playoff standings right now, there's a lot of drivers that are fighting to stay above that cut line. And one driver that is now newly above that cut line, Christopher Blanchard, after a second place run and missing out on that race win by less than 1/10 of a second. He is looking for redemption here at Darlington, now newly being in the top 16.
A real statement run from Christopher Blanchard and his team last week, Josh. Of course, definitely looking forward to getting himself here at Darlington tonight and putting together maybe a few good runs here in a row to try to get himself a little bit further from that cut line. But if you're somebody like Cody Knott, Jason Morales, this is a really good opportunity. Even Brandon Bullock, 20 points down. Adam Cantwell, 29 points down. Really good opportunity here tonight from Darlington to make a good run. If you can stay out of the inevitable trouble, you should have good points night tonight.
And you can see those names of the race winners being Lumpkin, Wade, Dittmer, Doucette, and Cinnamon. A lot of drivers that coming into this season I would not have had on my championship radar, but they are all showing up in the beginning of these rounds, and former champions and Brady LaBeouf's big competitors like Stephen Thomas, Michael McKinnon, Keith Bradley, all still looking for their first race wins of this season. But through this race, it's a relatively short opening stage, and same thing with stage 2, but we'll go racing for 150 total laps tonight. Lap 35 will be the end of stage 1. Lap 75 will be the end of stage 2. 75% fuel, gonna give them about a 40 to 45 lap fuel window, so that means these drivers will have to make a green flag pit stop during that final run, and maybe even multiple, because with that 40 to 45 lap window, if we go green all the way to the end, which if memory serves me correctly, the last time we broadcasted this series here at Darlington, they did go all the way to the end in that third stage. They might have to pit twice depending on how much fuel they're really burning.
Might have to pit twice in the third stage, and I think, Josh, this is one of the few tracks that we're going to see on the schedule this season that tires are possibly going to play a really big factor here. This track surface, you mentioned it a little bit at the top of the broadcast, is very rough, and you're maybe running up against the wall and maybe down low in that lower groove, and you're going to be using the tires a lot. And of course, if you scrape the wall, that doesn't really cause tire damage, but if you're in some kind of accident during the earlier stage of this race, you could chip into those tire sets early and leave yourself in a vulnerable position later in the race. If things go pretty normal and pretty calm, shouldn't be too big of an issue, but that is something to keep in the back of your mind tonight, I think.
Let's not waste any time and get into that starting grid. Drivers are ready to go racing for the virtual Darlington Raceway. And on the pole, how about Ted Wade? Yet another starting spot on the front row for the 2 machine, 29.574. He's got Brian Abbott to his outside P2. Joey Doucette will start to the inside of the second row in third. How about Michael McKinnon? One of his best efforts in qualifying in his throwback scheme in the number 13. He'll start fourth. Rounding out your top 5, it will be Jose Luis Rivera with Stephen Thomas on the outside of that third row. Brady LaBeouf, former champion of this series, alongside Keith Haney, with Devin Painter and Zach Hartwick going to round out your top 10. Robbie Richards will start in P11. Chris Cinnamon will start P12. Adam Newbert and Jason Morales, 2 newer names to this series, start 13th and 14th. And then P15 will be veteran of this series, Taylor Peacock in the 81. Matt Rudder starts P16 with Justin Lumpkin, your winner by just about a 1/10 of a second last week at Talladega. Starts to the inside of row 9. Dana Shepard will start to the outside. First drivers in the 32nd range of qualifying. Cody Knott and James Morris going to round out your top 20. Adam Cantwell will be alongside Raul Meza in 21st and 22nd. 23rd will be Christopher Blanchard, the driver who now above the cut line, very, very close to a race win at Talladega. Looks for more tonight. Tony Smith will start to his outside P24. Jacob Klinkart rounds out your top 25 with Jonathan Munda on the outside of the 13th row, P26. Huck Wigington will be the last driver to put in a time for qualifying, with Brandon Bullock starting in P28. Lucas Whitehead, Derek Kilgore, James Haney, Eric Zimmerman, and TJ Moore, race control 33rd. So 32 drivers will be taking the green flag here tonight from the virtual Darlington Raceway. So as the field rolls off, and you can see a lot of great throwback schemes in this field as well. This one's really going to be a challenge. This is one of the tracks on the schedule that is a quintessential driver's track. And I think the last time we saw a driver's track was Sonoma, and Ted Wade got the win. I believe that it really is no shocker that we see Ted Wade on the pole here.
This track is so difficult, Josh, and I think that something that is kind of hard to convey on the broadcast until we get into maybe an in-car view of one of the cameras during some race action is how narrow this track is as well. It's really hard to race side by side in these trucks and any kind of car you're racing on this Darlington Raceway, so going to be very difficult all night long for these drivers to stay out of trouble and navigate their way to the front. But yeah, you can see here now we're on board, and you can just see how tight that is down the backstretch, Josh, and you got to deal with that all night long. Not only to deal with the other drivers, you got to battle the racetrack as well.
32 trucks strong, and we'll see how many of them are going to go racing 3 wide. Pace truck down in the safety of pit lane. We're happy that you're with us on a beautiful Friday night for the NASRA Triple M Pulling Truck Series. It's the NRE Power Systems 200, and we say let's go racing. It's throwback night in Darlington. Already starting to see another dominant Ted Wade performance come into play as everybody towards the front of this field has single filed themselves out, not wanting to get too aggressive too quickly, as we see everybody now just trying to find out what they've got in these trucks and conserve those tires, because we mentioned how harsh this track is on the tires, Ian, and it really is. After 5 or 6 laps, these drivers are already going to start to feel the effects of tire wear.
And I think we're seeing that a little bit already, Josh, as we see the drivers really quickly getting into a single file line here and just running that top line. And not only does that allow you to conserve your momentum up on the high side, but you may be able to save a little bit of tire up there as well, because you're not diving into the corner as aggressively as if you're running the bottom line.
as we get a great look at the battle between the current P5 or the current number 5 machine of Jacob Klinkart, James Morris behind him, and first side by side is going to be around these drivers towards the back as Brandon Bullock looks like he might have had a bit of a connection issue there, fell back a moment, and now still too wide. Stare as Lucas Whitehead on the inside, Bullock trying to fight on that outside line in the number 17, and he'll go into turn number 1 with Derek Kilgore to the inside, and a bit of a door slam between those two as up and into the wall goes Bullock. He's able to save it. Multiple drivers avoiding incident there, but off the corner and again back to the wall goes the number 17. There's a fine line in between hitting the wall and kissing the wall, and I think he was full hitting the wall there.
Yeah, that was a little bit more of a hit than a kiss there. We mentioned the Darlington stripe earlier in the broadcast. I think that's our first of the night. We might have to get a counter up in the top right corner. Not sure if we can do that or not, but that's not the first we're going to see so far tonight. But already Derek Kilgore in that 11 truck early from the back of the pack making some moves, Josh. We've seen him have some strong runs this season, but always seems to find himself on the wrong side of an incident, it seems.
And already some drivers mid-pack starting to go side by side as it looks like a peek to the inside here for the drivers behind the 20. That's the 13 of Michael McKinnon to the inside of Devin Painter, and Painter is going to get thrown a little bit too far up the track and close to that outside wall. He has to be careful off of turn number 2 and avoids the hitting the wall once again. Painter normally always in a throwback scheme, and he keeps that going here in the number 99 tonight, but new throwback schemes for McKinnon. Loving the throwback scheme on the number 20 of Jose Luis Rivera. Good Matt Kenseth throwback there as they all race down the front straightaway, and you can see along this mid-pack now in drivers starting to get a little bit antsy, and they need to know how these trucks are going to race when they're under a lot of fuel load, as well as when those tires are starting to wear, which is exactly what we're looking at here. 7 laps down and lap times already falling about a half a second on the racetrack.
And that's just that tire wear we mentioned earlier in the broadcast starting to factor its way into our lap times here we're receiving from our trucks as well. But you mentioned it, Josh, it's just kind of a stage in the race right now where you make some moves around this track, kind of find where lines work for you. You mentioned getting the feel of the truck with a heavy fuel load and how the tires start to wear out. Just kind of making a little notebook for later in the race and possibly a green-white checkered situation where we'll see here at Darlington. You know, there's always a exciting run to the finish, and you just got to have those mental notes for later in the race.
So everybody now caught behind the number 20 of Jose Luis Rivera. Go up about a second, and you'll find Stephen Thomas in the number 23, who kind of leads the breakaway pack at the front of the field in the top 4. All the way back to Tony Smith with a Coors Light throwback there in the number 51, and it looks like he just caught the wall. And not a ton of damage to the side of the 51, but more so, especially when they're running in the pack in, it's not the damage they're worried about, it's the loss of time and momentum that they're worried about, especially through turns 1 and 2, when at this stage of the tire wear, even with 10 laps down, and even with about a second loss, they're not hitting the brakes too much in these trucks.
No, not at all. You're lifting if anything, and you're trying to run 3 and 4 probably as wide open as you possibly can. And we can see everybody kind of stacked up on the top side as the 94 here dives to pit road. Not sure, maybe getting a little bit early in that wall there. And we have trouble off the backstretch here. The 6 is spinning, Josh. We have one truck flipping over. It looks like the 37 of Mesa.
That is a massive incident on the back, and that is Raul Meza that just went over and over and over. First yellow flag of the night is out. Tony Smith also involved in this one. And we'll see how this entire incident got started, because it was at the tail end of the field. Cody Knott in the 26 also getting involved, and let's find out what on earth happened. So off of the corner, taking a look at the 37 here. Oh, 26 into the wall, hits the 37. Where does the flipping come in? Oh my, he catches a bad portion of the wall on the back straightaway and goes flipping end over end over end. He sticks the landing, but unfortunately these are not Pro 4 trucks in. He cannot continue.
No, he cannot continue, and that's one of the more interesting wall reactions I think I've seen. Oh, I think actually, Josh, if we saw there coming off of 4, it looks like there was a truck there that blinked out the last second, so possibly a combination of netcode and the wall there. I don't know if you saw that coming off forward here. We'll watch it again. It looks like there's one truck that kind of just blinks out there, possibly right at the last second. I think that's where the flipping starts.
Just saw that on the replay. I don't know who it was, but there was somebody that did end up blinking there. I'm wondering, with a 17 of Brandon Bullock is into the pit lane, I'm wondering if it was him. The 51 of Tony Smith is also into the pit lane. It might have been him as well. So there's damage to the 51. There's also damage to the 17. Not sure if it was the same incident for both of them. And Tony Smith in the 51 just completely totaled in that number 51 entry. So very, very strange incident on the back straightaway. But either way, handful of trucks down into the pit lane, and this sees us under the yellow flag for the first time. And even with the amount of laps we have run, nobody electing to come down into the pit lane so far, Ian, which it would throw off the strategy of this race, because with the stage breaks, okay, you can pit at the end of stage 1, you can pit at the end of stage 2, you can pit halfway through stage 3, and if everything goes well, you'll be able to go all the way to the checkered flag on that tank of fuel. So pitting now is going to put them off cycle of not only everybody else in the field, but you're also going to then have to think a little bit more about the strategy, with the guaranteed stage cautions pretty much as a layup on the strategy.
Of course, but if you find yourself at the back of the pack or trying to get a whole bunch of track position, Josh, you kind of have to go off strategy from the rest of the pack if you want to do that, especially through, you know, pit stops and things like that. So something you want to do. Nobody took it last time by, and that doesn't really surprise me. I don't think we've had too many heat cycles in these tires yet. We've had this one yellow, and that's pretty much it. But I don't think there's too many heat cycles in these tires yet, and tires aren't really a factor right now. So I don't think there's much of an advantage, as you mentioned, the pitting early at this stage, unless you're trying to get a huge chunk of track position by staying out when everybody pits at the end of the guaranteed caution at stage 1 here.
We have seen drivers before go off strategy and try and do their own. It has not worked out for a race win yet this season, but if they get to a point where maybe they pit in between the end of the race and that last pit stop for the drivers kind of on the stage break strategy, we'll call it, they'll have fresher tires, especially if a caution comes out to bunch up the field. It could be looking at a driver that can drive their way up the field with some fresh rubber on these tires, but we'll see if it comes into play. We'll see if anybody's willing to do it, because again, like I mentioned, Ian, an oddball strategy hasn't worked yet this season. Doesn't mean it can't, but we have not seen it come into play.
Well, you said it hasn't worked, and you're right in the fact that it hasn't worked for a win, but it has worked for a few drivers to get huge chunks of track position, and that means huge chunks of points in the championship standings. And as you mentioned, a few drivers have taken advantage of some early cautions after they pit to get some jumps in track position with those fresh tires. So you're correct. It hasn't worked out for a win quite yet, but we've seen some drivers play it really well. We've also seen it be a double-edged sword, and some drivers get bit by it too as well, Josh. But nothing we have to worry about here. We just got to worry about going back to green flag racing here in a second.
First caution period done. We'll go racing with 21 laps remaining in stage number 1. Field back in the hands of Ted Wade. They hit the Geico restart zone, and we are back underway here from virtual Darlington. And it's another great restart from Wade, but the field will stay side by side for that third spot. Is on the inside, that's Brian Abbott, outside Brady LaBeouf. They get single filed out through turn 2. They arc to the apex of turn 2 and spit onto the Boeing back straightaway, and these drivers taking these corners a lot like you would at a track like the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, where they kind of arc the corner in turn 3 and they come back up towards the wall and then arc it again for turn 4 and then go back to the straightaway. It really looks like they're treating each individual corner as it is, each individual corner, unlike you would do at a track, say like Charlotte or Texas, where you have kind of turn 1 and 2 you can combine into 1, and turn 3 and 4 you can combine into 1. You can't do that here.
Well, not only are the two turns a different radius, Josh, and a different length and the irregular egg-shaped configuration of the speedway, but turn 1 is banked at 25 degrees and turn 3 and 4 is 23 degrees. So a little bit different banking as well. So not only do you have to consider the different radius of the turns and the different straightaway lengths and everything like that, but you got to adjust to the different banking as well. And Correct me if I'm wrong. I may be wrong here. I think there's a little bit of progressive braking here at Darlington as well, especially coming off that bottom section of the turn. So can really use a lot of things to your advantage here.
I know after that white dash line, it does severely go down in banking. Not sure if anything above that, but ooh, getting very, very close to the wall there was that Ford F-150 of Adam Newbert in the 4. He'll get a great run off the corner, though, to turn 1. Goes to the inside of the 48 of Robbie Richards. How's this one going to work? In a car around in the background. That'll be the 24 of Zach Hartwick. It looks like he might have taken Dana Shepard and Adam Cantwell with him, but they did not fully wreck, and they're about to off of turn 2. There goes the 8 car right on around the 17 of Bullock involved. The 55 gets tagged, and that'll be caution number 2. And this one involving that number 8 machine. I believe it was the Adam Cantwell in the 8 involved in that one, who was also in the pile up there at the end of turns 1 and 2. But that'll bring out caution flag number 2 of the night. Let's see what happened, because it really started with that chain reaction wreck, and oh my goodness, that was the 8 car trying to get back into line with Brandon Bullock, and I believe we've been talking about the 17's connection issues for the beginning of the night, and I think they might have just came into play there a little bit further. Oh no, that was an issue with the driver in front of him, which was the 47 of James Morris.
That's the second time we've seen some strange things happen in that part of the racetrack too as well, Josh. I'm about to get another look at it. That was very odd, that contact there, but this whole thing happened in slow motion. You see the contact with the 24 there. We thought that was going to bring out the caution. Kind of just splits everybody up here. Now we see the 8 come in, and watch what happens here, Josh. This is interesting. How does that hurt the right rear like that? That's so weird. I've never seen a truck bounce off of another truck in that way, at least.
Seemed like connection issues definitely played a factor, as you could see.
Oh, yes.
A good bit of space in between those two as we went on board the 17, but that pushed the 8 into the 17, and then the 17 ended up having contact from their back bumper that ended up leading to them getting turned around into that incident. So another chain reaction wreck, which is very, very easy here at Darlington. This track reminds me of the Dover Motor Speedway. In the way that the wrecks develop, it really is chain reaction wrecks. And of course, with the amount of banking, 25 degrees in turns 1 and 2, and 23 here in 3 and 4, as you mentioned, Ian, the wrecks kind of happen going down in the corners. And same thing on the straightaway. You run out of places to go, because we mentioned the running area on this track really only being those top 3 seams that even on the straightaways, you don't deviate much from those, and you end up just kind of having these chain reaction pile up wrecks.
And it's kind of a catch-22 as a driver. You see both of the walls that kind of flank the front and back stretch there. So you're right, it makes it harder. You have nowhere to go on the straightaway unless you really want to try to flirt with that wall on the bottom side of the racetrack. And you mentioned the turns kind of funnel tracks or funnel wrecks down the track. And not only that, but when someone backs into the wall, they're going to come up the track too. So where do you go? Do you go to the high side and try to avoid there and get backed into, or do you try to go to the low side and catch the funnel effect? So you're right, it's very much like Dover in the fact that it all kind of funnels to the bottom, and there's nowhere really for the drivers to go once a chain reaction happens in front of them.
So under caution, second time tonight. We'll go back to racing with 13 to go in the stage. And again, this time by nobody deviating from the stage break strategy. Everybody stays on the racetrack. That did not get caught up in that incident. And Zach Hartwick, who was a part of that chain reaction accident that kind of started the entire incident that led to this caution that we're under right now, he stayed out, not a ton of damage to the 24. James Haney as well, I believe he might have been caught up in that incident. He also stays on the racetrack. So everybody in the top 22 have not come down into the pit lane yet, and the only driver to come down twice was Cody Knott. Unfortunately, one of the only drivers caught up in both of the incidents so far tonight. But lights out on the iRacing pace truck, and there is that very, very damaged number 26 Toyota Tundra as he catches the tail end of the field alongside Eric Zimmerman and more, closer to the tail end of the pacing lines. But Ted Wade will be still leading the way. Choose the inside once again with Joey Doucette, Brady LaBeouf, Brian Abbott, and Steven Thomas rounding out the top 5. Not a ton of deviation from how we started this race, except for Brady LaBeouf, who started back in P7, has made his way up to P3.
Yeah, something to watch here, Josh, is last time by, Brady LaBeouf made a huge run on the outside, got himself up to 3rd position really early there, and was working really well at Doucette off the restart. We'll see if that happens again here, or if he decides to go with Ted Wade on the bottom side. Ted Wade has been dominant so far in this race, again, kind of quietly, while everything's been happening later on in the pack, Josh.
Well, we're getting ready to go back to racing. Once again, Ted Wade still leads the way. Joey Doucette to the outside. Winner at Martinsville and Sonoma on the inside. And winner from back at Homestead on the outside. Back to the Geico restart zone. Back under the green flag as Ted Wade with another great restart side by side for 2nd place. And here comes LaBeouf, the 9 truck, shot out of a cannon for the restart. And from 7th now to P2. LaBeouf looks for the race lead from Wade as they stack up behind everybody. Back to single file. Richards looks to the inside further back. Doesn't decide to do it. Down the Boeing backstretch. Back to turn 3.
And LaBeouf did a great job there, Josh, getting down in the turn 1 to just perfectly slide up in front of the 16 truck at Doucette there and just really set sail after Wade at this point. Going to see if anybody can run down Ted Wade. It's been really hard to do, though, so far this season, Josh, but if anybody's been able to do it, Brady LaBeouf has been one of those people.
Already about close to the end of stage number 1 as onto the back straightaway, still side by side a little bit further into the top 10 as they'll look for the moves down the back or front straightaway and then not end up making them when they reach the corner. And issue for Huck Wigington there in the 00. I believe it was letting the field by. Did not hit the wall off the corner, but it looks like he was not looking to race anybody around him and ended up just letting a group by, and now scored back in P27 on the racetrack. But Ted Wade still leads the way. Back from there, it is LaBeouf, Doucette, Thomas, and Abbott still rounding out the top 5 as 10 laps remain just about here in stage number 1 before we see that first stage break of the night.
And right now, these drivers are possibly hanging on a little bit, Josh. I kind of noticed there on that last restart that a few drivers, even at the front of the pack, kind of spun the tires there, getting up to speed. And I think we're starting to see some of that tire wear be a factor with all these restarts we've had so far in stage 1. So kind of maybe some of these drivers hanging on a little bit to the end of the stage to get some fresh Goodyear Eagles on there.
Harsh move to the inside for that Toyota Tundra there, trying to get around the 2 Chevys that he sees in front of him. As side by side between Rivera and Lumpkin here as well. As they race off of turn 2, Rivera holds the spot, but winner from Talladega 1 week ago, Justin Lumpkin in the 87 wants that spot. And how about Adam Newbert going side by side with Robbie Richards? He goes underneath the dotted white line on the inside. They can do that. That is a lane they can run a little bit slower once they get to the apex, but it is a good way to get a little bit more of an extra boost in the entry to 1 and the entry to 3 to really arc that corner as best as they can.
Yeah, you'll see a lot of drivers, Josh, use that strategy to dive down on that low side of the banking there and then slide up in front of drivers. We saw Brady LaBeouf in the 9 do that to the 16 of Joey Doucette on that restart there heading into turn 1. And so you're right, it's a good way to cut the corner a little bit, kind of try to make that pass there. But one truck, they're getting really loose off of 4. It's not a great way to hold the speed, and it really hurts your corner exit unless you're able to slide up really well.
He goes for side by side again in that number 87, but once again, Rivera using that outside line, able to hold off that number 20 as LaBeouf trying to chase down Ted Wade up close to the front of this pack has stalled out. I haven't seen much from that lead battle since that restart took place. And with now 6 to go here in stage number 1, not sure how aggressive LaBeouf either is willing to get or can get. Last time by, it was a 10th faster than Ted Wade, but as I mentioned, only a 10th faster. And with the lap times now down about an average of about a second. On the bad side, it's about a second and about 1.2 seconds, or maybe about 1.3 in some worst case scenarios right now with these worn tires. 5 to go in the stage. They're not in a terrible spot, those Goodyears, just yet with the 2 cautions we've had. So how much tire does LaBeouf really have to work with? Last time by, 2 100s quicker than Wade.
2 100s quicker than Wade, but he's running out of time. But if you're Brady LaBeouf, if you're in the 9 truck, you're sitting in 8th place in the points, 69 ahead of the cut line. So right now where you're at in the stage is going to net you some good points. So it's a good spot to be in still if you're Brady LaBeouf. So and especially it's just stage 1. So I don't think you try to push really too hard unless you have a great run on Ted Wade out there. But we've seen crazier things happen, Josh.
Back through turns 1 and 2 to the Boeing backstretch, and still Wade at the front. LaBeouf is catching, but not nearly as quick as I think we were expecting, especially off of the restart. And I don't think he's going to have an opportunity for this stage win. Of course, the stage win, not necessarily too important. Yes, he'll get the maximum amount of stage points, but other than that, it's not going to give him too much of an advantage that I think he's willing to get too aggressive for the stage win. But this time by 2 to go, pit lane will be closing, and as we take a look further back in the field and now back up to the race lead, LaBeouf with a 3/10 gap. I don't think he's going to have enough for this stage win. 2 to go this time.
And I think if you're also Brady LaBeouf as well, you've won races before in the NASRA polling or Triple M polling truck series, and I think at this point with Ted Wade having 2 wins, you got to think that Brady LaBeouf is thinking long term in this race and going for the win. So again, I don't think he's going to do anything too aggressive here, as we're going to be coming to the white flag for the stage this time, Josh. So Ted Wade and that beautiful Terry Labonte throwback paint, I think, is going to win stage 1 here unless anything too crazy happens in the next lap.
1 to go in stage number 1, but Brady LaBeouf, it looked like he might have been a threat, now falling back in P2 to about 4.5 tenths, and the lap times have gone the way of Ted Wade. So it looks like Brady LaBeouf might have just learned a pretty crucial lesson close to the end of this stage, which is don't push too hard with the Goodyear Eagles on these trucks. But through turns 3 and 4 and back to the front straightaway here at Darlington, 2 cautions in the opening stage, but Ted Wade was not beat on any lap. Every lap led so far by the 2, and he wins stage number 1, and caution flag hits the speedway. Stage 1 winner, the 2 of Ted Wade. This is looking a lot like what we saw at both Martinsville and Sonoma a couple of weeks ago, Ian, and another dominant Ted Wade victory might be on the horizon.
Could possibly be. He seems to do it so quietly, though, as well, Josh. When you're looking at all the action further back in the field and a couple of wrecks and everything like that, and no matter what we seem to throw at Ted Wade here up at the front of the pack, he kind of adapts to it and doesn't really let anything phase him too much. Doesn't get beat off restarts, is able to really just drive his race and check out from the rest of the field, it seems like, anytime we have him at the front of the pack. So you're right, barring any unforeseen circumstances, that could be what we're seeing again tonight. I am interested, though, Josh, because we're going to be coming down to pit stops this time. If anybody stays out and tries to run that alternate strategy possibly this time.
Expecting everybody to hit the pit lane as they hit turn 3, and there goes just about everybody in the field. Ted Wade leads the field down into the pit lane, and now comes the interesting question of, does anybody deviate from 4 tires? I don't think at this point anybody's even thinking about doing that, but we'll see.
And there was a fake back there.
The pit lane.
There was a fake back there. Somebody tried to fake it out back there. I was just trying to add some drama to the pit lane strategy, but you're right. 2 or 4 tires, I guess, is the exciting question now.
I agree with trying to add the drama here to the pit lane strategy, and I think we will see a bit of some differing strategies closer to the end of this race. But end of stage 1, 2 cautions especially. I think everybody just looking for some fresh shoes to put on these NASRA Triple M pulling trucks. And everybody into the pit lane, and everybody looking to grab 4 tires as the left sides go up. There go the right sides go up. There go the left sides, and out first goes Ted Wade. Does LaBeouf come out second? No, he does not. Joey Doucette beats the 9 out of pit lane for second. Then it's LaBeouf, Thomas, and Brian Abbott, the top 5. Eric Zimmerman staying out onto the racetrack. I believe he's going to try and get a lap back as a wave around truck. So that will set him to the tail end of the longest line and on the lead lap. And I believe that is going to be everybody else down in the pit lane. Yes, it is. So the only driver staying out is the 94 as Zimmerman. And even though 29 laps on the tires in, it's with good reason trying to grab a lap back. And honestly, if we do see a caution right after the stage break, well, he'll get a lap back, and he won't have to suffer with the worn tires too long.
Yeah, exactly. So put himself probably in the best possible position you can be in right now, especially with that much damage that you see on that truck there. But just doing what you can at this point. So he'll be at the tail end of the longest line. So Ted Wade there, who you see right now currently in the second position on the track, will inherit the lead again, and then Joey Doucette will be starting on the outside. You mentioned Ted Wade, or I'm sorry, not Ted Wade, but Brady LaBeouf lost that spot on pit road, but thankfully for him, Josh, he's been in this situation before, and he was able to pass Doucette last time on the restart, so we'll see if he can do it again here.
Reminder, under the stage caution here, it is the 3rd total caution of the night. 2 incident cautions through stage 1, and now we are under our first stage break of the evening, and already nearing about 100 laps to go. 150 laps from virtual Darlington, and there goes Eric Zimmerman into the pit lane, so it doesn't look like he'll grab the wave around. He will pit in the number 94, and that will put Ted Wade back to the front, and with 1 to go signal being given this time by the 2 of Ted Wade will lead us back to the green flag. He chooses the inside once again, and Joey Doucette in the 2 in the 2nd place spot will go to the outside. But interested to see in how Brady LaBeouf does on this restart from the 2nd row, because we know he can time those restarts really well at this track, and he seems to have speed in that truck that he didn't really show in qualifying. And under race pace, I'm wondering if he has what it takes to stay with that too under fresh tires.
Yeah, these restarts have been a bit paradoxical as well, because that bottom line is really advantageous for the initial drive in the turn 1, but then after that you see everybody wants to file the top sign as fast as they possibly can. So I think that's why we saw LaBeouf there try to get up to such a good start as he did last time, the last restart we had at the end of the last stage, Josh. And I think here, if I was a bet man, I'm going to see him get the jump on to set on the outside here and take P2 away again, but we'll see. We'll see what happens as we come to green again here.
It will be 35 laps in this stage. We'll end at lap 75. Same exact distance as stage number 1. Back to the Geico restart zone, back to green flag, and Ted Wade with another perfectly timed restart. But look at Brady LaBeouf from row 2. He's already looking for second. He's going to take second away from the 16 of Doucette, and through 1 and 2, the 9 machine back to second place as they're single file through the top 10.
The exact same move we saw in the last restart too by the 9 truck, Josh. That truck's got really good short run speed. It's just he's really gonna have to make the move on Wade early as well, because you can see right now he gets such a great jump on the inside on those restarts. It's really gonna be so hard to catch him if you let him get out to about a 5-10 truck like lead as he is right now.
Yeah, and Ted Wade still just pulling away over 1 second now through turns 1 and 2 to the Boeing backstretch. LaBeouf got a lot of work to do if he wants to hold a candle to Ted Wade at the start of a run, clearly, but what can Joey Doucette do? Remember, Doucette a winner from Homestead, and yes, Darlington and Homestead, 2 very different tracks in, but I do think you can draw a couple of similarities, mainly with the way the tires are worn. With Doucette getting the win at Homestead, do you think he might have a little bit of a leg up on the competition here? Because you need to manage the tires here much like you would at Homestead.
I do see what you're saying. I see the parallels that you're trying to make. It's an abrasive, medianly banked surface, and it's around 1.3 miles to 1.5 miles. So I do see the parallels you're trying to draw there. And yeah, I do think that's going to play into Joey Doucette's advantage here, especially on the long run. If we get a long run here, especially in stage 3, I think it's going to be very, very similar racing to what you see at Homestead, Josh. So that's a really good comparison there, and something to keep in mind, especially if you're a fan of the 16 truck there at home.
And Stephen Thomas has joined this 3-truck fight for the second spot. Stephen Thomas still looking for race win number 1 this season, which is kind of surprising to say for the number 23. Normally winning races in a season, but so far this season, 6 races down, still no wins for the 23, and I think more surprising, he has a 79-point buffer to the cut line, but also still not locked into the playoffs, and also still not with, I think, the results that he's really been looking for. Yes, he's been consistent, but it hasn't been the contending for race wins every week that we used to see from the 23 of Stephen Thomas.
And we've seen how hard it is, Josh, to turn consistency every single week into a race win. So you mentioned it. He's been banging on the door of wins. He's been running up there consistently in the top 5, top 10 all season long for Stephen Thomas, but still finds himself in 7th place, a really respectable spot to be in, but not quite where he wants to be. And you know he'd love to have that race win under his belt to really lock himself into the playoffs, but sometimes you just got to be persistent and keep plugging away. Kind of reminds you of Ryan Blaney in the Cup Series right now, running closer to the playoffs with a race win, but second in the point standings. So really interesting what this format does, especially putting such an emphasis on wins, Josh, but you just got to keep running and hope for the best if you're in a position like Stephen Thomas is right now.
And of course, I remember back to the last season that we broadcasted here, which was about 2 seasons ago, and oh goodness, one driver down to the apron at turn 3, and another driver with an engine about to be expired. And I don't know who that is with the number just about gone from the side. I believe that's the one of Jason Morales that just pulled into the pit lane. Yes, it was. What happened to the one? And now we're under the yellow flag with the 00. Slow with an expired engine on the apron of the back straightaway. I believe it was the 22 making contact with the wall, and then that led to the 1 getting his damage, or the 55, excuse me. That's James Haney into the wall, hits the 1, pushes Morales down to the inside. But what happened to the 00? Because it was a complete lap after that same exact incident on the back straightaway.
I'm not sure. Was it the 00? I'm not entirely sure it was. I think the 00 is fine. But I know what you're talking about. There was another truck that was smoking as well. And really interesting, actually, there, Josh, that contact with the 1. I don't know if that's engine damage was smoking like that. I'm not entirely sure how that happened. There's obviously the engine damage there. 2 trucks into the inside wall, but for the 1 truck there, I'm not entirely sure how that happened.
So it was the 82 of Brian Abbott, excuse me. It was not the 00 of Huck Wigington. And oh my, big damage for the 78 machine there. And getting it spit out back into the pit lane. But back under the yellow flag now, and an unfortunate incident for the 4 trucks there. 2 trucks involved 1 lap, 2 trucks involved the next lap, and the second incident bringing us under the yellow flag. Does anybody chance the pit lane? No, they do not. They all pass by the pit lane entry. Going out of the back straightaway. I'm definitely not going to be thinking about pitting onto the old pit straight. This used to be the front straightaway here at Darlington before it was flipped. Now the back straightaway, and I just clearly have no idea where we are on the racetrack anymore.
But you're not wrong, though. They did pass the pit lane entrance on the last time by. So they did do that at least.
I just said it a little late.
Right. Yeah, so we'll see if anybody takes it this time around, coming out of 4 here. Pit lane will be open. I don't think there'll be any takers, Josh, as we kind of mentioned earlier, unless you have damage. But again, it's one of those incidents that we see that start in one place and kind of finish in another. And you mentioned we kind of see that a lot here at Darlington. But again, that kind of accordion style incident we see kind of strikes the field again.
Lights stay on. The iRacing pace truck will go around for at least 2 more laps, but with Ted Wade in the lead, LaBeouf, Doucette, Thomas, and now Newbert ends up in P5. How about the night the 4 machines starting to have? Up 8 spots from where they started, P13. Great run for the 4 of Adam Newbert so far in a throwback scheme of his own. No Kodak on the car, but he is continuing to run the VFW colors, which doing a couple charity races for the VFW last year in 2021. Love to see them being represented here.
That's what it is. I couldn't quite pick it out, but I knew it was familiar. It was the Kodak scheme, Josh. So good eye there. I knew it looked familiar, and of course we got the 3-car, the Dale Earnhardt paint behind him. Yeah, that takes no explanation. But loving the throwback paints we're seeing so far. A lot of good ones out there tonight.
And you can see the 13 of Michael McKinnon back there, also with the throwback scheme. Of course, your race leader, the 2 of Ted Wade, running a throwback scheme, and the 13 of Michael McKinnon, Western Auto colors on the car. Great looking number 13 Chevy Silverado, as they'll double file up once again. And there's a very familiar number 45 scheme for Dana Shepard.
That's a good one right there. Another one too is I don't know if you're Devin Painter in the 99. Is it a throwback scheme if you run it every week, Josh?
I think it still counts. I mean, that paint is very, very, very good looking, so I will count it just for that.
Okay, fair enough. I like that. That's good reasoning. It's not sound reasoning, but it's good reasoning. I like it still.
No, it's not great reasoning, but it is reasoning nonetheless. But as they go 2 by 2 down the back straightaway, remember this stage will end lap 75. 23 laps left in the stage when we take the green flag once again. Ted Wade's going to get another great restart here, but I think the big question is, will the 9 of Brady LaBeouf be able to keep up? Because now, instead of starting second row, he's starting outside of the front row. Can he hold up with the 2 of Ted Wade? He always shoots out of a cannon on these restarts. What is he able to do here? Off of turn 4, Geico restart zone. When does Ted Wade hit the loud pedal? He goes there, and LaBeouf is not able to hold on to the 2 of Ted Wade. He'll hold on to second place, but Ted Wade with another dynamite restart pulls away by about 4/10 now up at the front of the field to go back to the back straightaway.
Yeah, second place there. Brady LaBeouf in turn 2 again, able to clear the 16 of Doucette, kind of jostling in the back of the pack. We've got 1 car flipped in on the wall. That's the 5 car. And I believe the 45 again, or the 45 truck, excuse me. Not exactly sure what happened there, Josh. Again, obviously something coming off at 2, but not kind of sure what the impetus of that was.
So no caution, we stay green. That's the 5 of Jacob Klinkart that is up on the old pit wall. He has since towed it back into the pit lane, but how he got stuck up there is beyond me. That's one of the first times I have ever seen that happen on the iRacing service. Let's take a look at this replay. Shepard on the outside, Klinkart on the inside. They make contact, and he hits the wall at a bad spot and ends up on top of it.
Yeah, just kind of got basically slingshotted back onto the wall there and then parked on it and nowhere to go but to reset. That's really unfortunate for the 5 truck. That's should have been just a simple bounce off the wall for him and keep going, Josh.
That is the first time specifically on that wall that I have ever seen that happen. I've seen it happen on a couple walls, and I've seen the Rallycross Tony Hawk.
I was just gonna say,
but
yeah.
I've never seen a NASCAR truck up on a pit wall like that. Something you don't see every day. But at the front, LaBeouf in second, has Doucette behind, and still Stephen Thomas at the tail end of this 3-truck battle. This is gonna get interesting because remember, right before that last caution came out, Doucette was battling with the 9, trying to get around him. Can he complete it here with about now inside of 20 to go in the stage?
And you're right. We saw that onboard camera from the back angle of Brady LaBeouf's truck at Joey Doucette. He was trying to make that inside line work. Right now, Doucette or LaBeouf in the 9 truck is trying to run that outside and keep the momentum up. We have 1 truck driving the pit road here, so not sure what happened there, but Brady LaBeouf is trying to make that outside line work, and right now Doucette's trying to get to the bottom and really just can't right at this right now, but was able to make that run work earlier. Maybe his truck needs to get a few more laps on the tires before he can make that line work again, Josh.
Stephen Thomas still knocking on the back door of the 16 of Joey Doucette. But Doucette looking for a spot by LaBeouf. It looks like off of turn 2, LaBeouf either did hit the wall or almost hit the wall. He does hit the wall, middle of 3 and 4. That's a good Darlington stripe there for your former champion. He loses 2 spots, loses 3, loses 4, and outside the top 5 goes the 9.
And you mentioned earlier, Josh, how a move like that and just tapping the wall ever so slightly could really just kill all your momentum. And we see that happen to the 9 truck there. He lost about 4 or 5 positions and now finds himself battling with the 48 truck there for 7th position.
And they arc turns 3 and 4 especially so extreme that they get so close to that wall, about inches off of it, and that is the fastest line to run here at the virtual Darlington Raceway. And unfortunately, LaBeouf flew a little bit too close to the sun. Now he has to basically start from square one. Remember, he started this race in P7, goes down into P6. I want to highlight the driver now that is in front of Brady LaBeouf. Justin Lumpkin in the 87, who is on the back bumper of the 4 of Adam Newbert for 4th. Lumpkin, of course, winner from Talladega 1 week ago in that spectacular finish. But how about this run now as they go into turns 1 and 2? He sits 12 spots up from where he started in P5.
And right now he sits just on the back bumper of Neubert there, heading down the backstretch into turn 3. I'm sorry, Neubert heading down the backstretch into turn 3. Right now, it looks like he's trying to make the inside line work for the pass, but just trying to get all the way up to the back bumper of the 4 and try to make the run here work off of turn 4.
Back across the stripe, Lumpkin looks to the inside of Newbert, battle for 4th. They keep it off of each other relatively cleanly, but it doesn't look like Lumpkin had enough of a run on the bottom lane to get the pass done off of turn 2. Now LaBeouf looks for that move on both of these drivers, but look at behind Brady LaBeouf. He's got Robbie Richards there. He's got Michael McKinnon. He's got Devin Painter, and he's got Chris Cinnamon all at the edge of the top 10, all looking to go forward. A damaged number 13 goes to the inside of the 48 in turn 1.
It's kind of having
into the wall.
Yeah, 99 Painter into the 48 there. It's kind of having that accordion effect back to the field there, Josh, and you see it create some contact as 2 trucks would get side by side. It would kind of back the other truck up to the one behind it, and then they would be side by side, and it would kind of just move back to the field. You were seeing that there, and ended up in contact between the 99 and 48.
Side by side again between the 88 of Whitehead and the 3 of Chris Cinnamon. Another good run tonight for Lucas Whitehead. P11 up 17 as we go back to the battle up close to the front of the field as the 88 and the 3 continue to run close together. This is at the 11th and 12th position, right outside that top 10. And this battle close to the edge of the top 10 is always very, very interesting to watch in, because all these drivers are trying to move forward, but it's also the drivers that have a lot to play for. These are the drivers that are at the edge of the playoff picture right now.
Not only are they on the edge of the playoff picture, but they are on the edge of getting those stage points. So we still got a few laps here to go, and more than a few laps here to go to the end of the stage, but coming in here at the end of lap 75. But you're trying to battle for those stage points if you're one of those drivers on the edge or in the playoffs and trying to set yourself up for a good position. So if you're right on the edge there, especially if you're getting, we see a few trucks getting into the wall here, Josh, and some trucks trying to avoid as well, but especially if you're trying to get into one of those playoff positions, you're going to be really aggressive for those top 10 spots.
10 laps to go in stage 1. The gap at the front of the field is more than 1 second now between Wade and Doucette, as multiple drivers right outside the top 10 hit the wall a few times actually. Taylor Peacock in the 81 fighting with the 47. Here's the battle for second place that is now developing as Stephen Thomas tries to look to the outside, but the 16 of Doucette with a good run. That run on the outside line off of 2 and 4 is just too much, and Stephen Thomas goes to second place, looking for one more added stage point.
And he's been struggling to get a win so far this season, Josh, you mentioned earlier, but that slip up by Brady the Buff really opened the door for Stephen Thomas. It kind of killed all the momentum of the 16 truck, and he's really struggled to get back up to where he was as far as pace-wise. And right now, Stephen Thomas is one of the fastest trucks on the racetrack, and he's looking to run down Ted Wade for the lead now.
Can he run him down in time for a stage win? There is the 2 of Ted Wade, who tonight has been the traditional dominant Ted Wade that we've come to know. I mean, at Martinsville, very, very dominant. Same thing with Sonoma. Both of them drivers' tracks. So I think now, whenever we go to a very tough, very technical track, and I know that 2 is going to be at the top of my predictions list, and I think it's going to be at the top of yours as well, Ian.
Oh, I definitely agree here, but something we're starting to see is Ted Wade is continuing to pull away here from the 23 truck of Stephen Thomas's. Lap traffic is going to start to be a factor here. I don't know if it's going to start to be a factor by the end of this stage, but going into that 3rd stage, Josh, especially see a really long green flag run, I think that's the only thing that Ted Wade has to worry about as he tries to hold off Stephen Thomas for the rest of this race.
And I think something interesting that is now starting to develop is as the 4 gets into the wall a little bit closer up into the top 5. That's Adam Newbert. LaBeouf now going to be on his back bumper, looking for a spot further up in the top 5. But what I was going to mention is the drivers that are now 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, I think all on a normal night have trucks to win this race. And if Ted Wade has a problem, all these drivers will be right there, because we have seen Ted Wade make mistakes before. He made mistakes in the race that he won at Sonoma. Just luckily he had enough speed on a road course that he was able to hold the race lead and was able to get the win. One mistake, one oddball pit strategy that maybe goes awry, or any sort of extended damage. Of course, we've seen the Darlington stripes, but what about if he pancakes the wall a little bit too hard, ends up with aero or engine damage? A lot could happen to the 2, and guess what? We've got the 23, the 16, the 4, and especially the 9 as he goes for 4th, all with race-winning trucks.
Yeah, you're really starting to see the 9 truck right now get his momentum back and try to make his way back up through the field. But you saw that run there he made on the 4 truck of Newbert there really kind of killed his momentum, and you see the 4 truck battling back here, trying to make a move back on LaBeouf here for that spot.
We go on to lap 72, 4 laps remaining in stage 2. Top 10 will earn stage points, as Stephen Thomas is cutting into the lead of Ted Wade, albeit not by a ton. About 3/10 gained for Stephen Thomas that last time by. This time by about 2/10. Actually, making about a 1/10.5 gained by Stephen Thomas onto Ted Wade. So not enough to be a threat yet, but Joey Doucette has a truck in between himself and Brady LaBeouf that LaBeouf will navigate around. He goes to the outside, he goes right on by us. Number 55, it looks like they're working their way through. And back to the front straightaway. LaBeouf now with open track to try and chase down Doucette for the 3rd spot at the end of stage 2. 2 laps to go that last time by.
2 laps to go this time by, and you mentioned that the lead was getting cut into a little bit by Stephen Thomas, and I think that's a little bit of the wrap traffic we talked about earlier, Josh. And right now, not making too big of an effect on Ted Wade, as we see 1 truck there at the bottom there. The leaders and the rest of the pack are going to avoid. I don't think that's going to bring the yellow out. That's Matt Runner there down on the apron, Josh, but it's going to be a factor here through the rest of the race, especially the long clean flat run for Ted Wade to get through that lap traffic and hold off Stephen Thomas there.
Well, white flag is out for stage 2. It looks like race control not going to be eager to throw a yellow flag. So through turns 3 and 4, 2 stages tonight make it 2 stage wins as Matt Rudder starts to get that engine fired. It is stage number 2 going to the 2 of Ted Wade. He's 2 for 2 tonight, and he is looking at a 3rd race win in the NASRA Triple M Pulling Truck Series season. Yellow flag hits for the stage 2 break, and as we go halfway done with this race as well, the 2 of Ted Wade is looking pretty unbeatable. But what's going to happen on pit road?
You mentioned it, Josh. It seems like anytime we go to a technical track, a challenging track that really demands a lot out of the driver, Ted Wade seems to find his way to the top. So, as you kind of mentioned earlier, I think it's going to take a mistake from Ted Wade or some kind of mistake in front of him that he can't really control to open the door for Stephen Thomas or somebody else farther down in the field. But right now, Ted Wade, it's his race to lose, Josh.
And an update on the 33 of Matt Rudder. It was not an incident. It looked like maybe a hardware failure because he just kind of went into turn 3, pulled down towards the apron like he wanted to come into the pit lane and then just stopped.
He did kind of lock up his brakes there, Josh. So yeah, it kind of seemed like something happened there.
It's a curious case, but he was able to get it back going, did pull into the pit lane, and as of now, I believe, is still sitting on said pit lane. Or actually, he's towed it completely back to the garage, and it looks like he is out of this race. So, not sure exactly what happened to the 33, but nonetheless, no caution came out for that. Caution did come out for the stage break, and everybody's into the pit lane. Does Ted Wade go for yet another 4-tire stop? I'm believing everybody will here with nobody pitting since the last stage break. 45 laps on these tires, about 40 of those under the green flag, and they're going to want some fresh rubber.
Yeah, I think everybody takes 4 tires here, Josh. You might see the 2-tire play later on with the last stop these drivers are making this race, but right here, you got to think 4 tires and fuel is the play.
And off of the pit lane, race for second place. Who got it? The 9 of Brady LaBeouf is going to grab it. So Doucette falls to 3rd. Stephen Thomas ends up 4th. And just like that, the dynamic of the top 5 changes with LaBeouf back into second place even after the issues in stage 2. And how about Adam Newbert rounding out the top 5 as well? McKinnon, Painter, Lumpkin, Rivera, and Hartwick rounding out the top 10. How about the 24 back up here towards the top 10, but he has not pit, and it looks like this time he's gonna bring that number 24 into the pit lane. Man, I was just so excited for Zach Hartwick. I mean, right after the incident he had as well, Ian back up into the top 10, but I believe he got a lap back and is now heading into the pit lane. Still a relatively good effort being back on the lead lap, especially after the incident he had.
Yeah, really just salvaging the most of he can out of this run. Kind of got involved in an incident earlier in the race that wasn't really his fault, and you see the damage to the rear end of that 24 Valvoline machine, kind of a Mark Martin throwback there. Josh, that's a really good one as well. But an inverse of the race off of pit road sees Brady LaBeouf in P2, so you got to think here he knows that if he has any chance to beat Ted Wade or get in front of Ted Wade in this race, he's going to have to do it off the restart, Josh. I think there's no questions about that.
Well, in the front of the pacing group is Brandon Bullock. Looks like he's going to grab a wave around the pace car, but it will be the 2 of Ted Wade leading us back to green. Looking at, if we do take 1 to go this time by, we're looking at 70 laps to go, which is going to be about exactly 2 of the stages that we had to open the night, 35 and 35. 40 to 45 laps on the fuel window. Pit stop right in the middle of those 35 lap segments, and all these drivers already know how the tires work for 35 laps. Drivers already know how the fuel is going to work for 35 laps, so they're going to be looking to pit just about exactly in the middle of this opening, this final stage. Because remember, opening stage and the second stage both had 35 laps total of green flag action. After the stage 2 break, or after stage 1 break, of course, we'll have 70 laps of action after this stage number 2 break. So we'll go racing to the checkered flag. 3 incident cautions tonight, 5 cautions total with our 2 stage breaks. Will we see this field go green all the way to the end? Will we see green flag pit stops? A lot is still to be decided as they go into turn number 3. Field 2 by 2 with Wade and LaBeouf on the front row. Wade has been restart master tonight. Does that continue as we enter into stage 3? And can anybody catch a charging number 2 that is looking for his 3rd race win of the season? Field off of 4, back to the Geico restart zone, and we're back underway. Stage 3 is green, and another dynamite restart from the 2.
You mentioned it, Josh. The 2 just gets an absolute killer run off of all these restarts, and for once in this race, we see the 16 of Doucette dive to the inside of the 9 of Brady LaBeouf and try to beat him down the backstretch.
Trying to, not sure if it's going to work out that well as Newbert goes to the inside of Painter. They're fighting for P5, and Newbert with the inside line, fresh tires even, not going to be enough to make it work, and loose off of turn 4 is the 9 of Brady LaBeouf. Doucette in second, and Ted Wade is gone at the front of the field with 4 fresh Goodyear tires. 1.6 seconds is the gap. Doucette and LaBeouf still racing for 2nd place, which is going to be crucial points, especially as the 23 goes to the inside. Remember, as Stephen Thomas performs a just about perfect slide job on the 9 of LaBeouf, it's Thomas, LaBeouf, Painter, Newbert, McKinnon, Peacock, this entire group from 3rd down to 8th. 0 race wins so far for any of them. They're trying to get into the playoffs right now on points, while most of them are above that cut line. Some of them still having a fight to stay alive.
And you mentioned the perfect slide job by Stephen Thomas there on the 9 truck of Brady LaBeouf. Josh, it looks like he's setting up another one here on the 16 of Joey Doucette. He's going to try to get the run coming down the front stretch here. He's not going to quite be able to get there this time by, I think, but that 23 truck right now is fast.
Stephen Thomas running right up next to the wall. He gets a good run off of turn 2 to the back straightaway. Does he go for the move? Yes, he does. To the inside, side by side for 2nd place as Thomas dives it in again to turn 2, slides up by the wall, and runs it right back to the front straightaway. How about these slide job maneuvers from the 23? Now the question is, over this green flag run, we've got about 32 laps before any drivers hit the pit lane. Does he have enough to try and get up to the 2 of Ted Wade?
And that's the real question, Josh. We've mentioned the 23 truck of Stephen Thomas so far. Our winless this season has been able to kind of make his way up to 2nd place all night long, no problem. But the real issue is now running down Ted Wade of the 2 truck with 2 wins already on the season. That's going to be the real challenge tonight. And right now, I don't see any reason why he should be able to get to Ted Wade right now without something happening. But he's going to do all he can in that 23 truck to try to run him down right now. This is the best chance he's had at a win so far this season.
And this is the best chance he's had at a win this season. That is correct. And LaBeouf to the inside of Joey Doucette in turns 3 and 4. LaBeouf running that inside line. He's going to have enough of a run to keep it side by side down the front straightaway, but across the stripe, LaBeouf is going to have to settle for 4th place currently. And here comes a charging number 99 and Devin Painter behind through 1 and 2.
And we saw how fast Stephen Thomas in the 23 truck was making those moves, Josh. You really have to make those moves in a corner. You can't make it happen over the course of a lap or 2 laps. You really have to make it in 1 corner. And we saw what happened there to Brady LaBeouf. He got stuck on the inside of the 16 truck of Devin Painter. Not only was he not able to make the pass, Joey Doucette, he wasn't able to make the pass, but now Devin Painter is going to try to make the pass on Brady LaBeouf.
And Painter running right up next to the wall in the 99 and does not hit it. No Darlington stripe for him as LaBeouf looks back to the inside in 3, side by side, trying to come up the racetrack. Almost door slamming, but off of turn 4, LaBeouf not going to have enough for a run, and they make contact into the inside wall. Goes the 16 of Joey Doucette, and that is huge implications for the race win as the caution flag flies.
And that's what happens, Josh, when you get stuck side by side. We've already mentioned how narrow this racetrack is. There's really not enough room to run side by side, even on the front stretch or back stretch of this track. And we saw what happened there. The 9 and the 16 get together. Really wasn't anybody's fault, but that's really going to hurt the 16's race. Almost ends his night.
Oh, and that is going to end his night for the 16. Engine starting to go, radiator damage, and Unbelievable for the 16. They were so close side by side off of 4. I'm not sure if anybody really did anything wrong. We'll grab a look at the replay, but I think mainly what that incident was some more of those connection issues coming into play, and they just came together and we saw an incident happen. Actually, I believe it was Joey Doucette getting loose off of 4. There it is. And there was a little bit of space left between those two, but that's just bouncing off of each other off of turn 4, and I don't think we can really blame either of those drivers.
No, they're just racing for position there, and you mentioned it. The 16 gets loose, probably gets a little bit of air off the 9's door there, and they get together, and unfortunately the 16's the one that gets turned into the wall on the inside there, and really that could have been either of those trucks that, or both of them, that would have ended up in the wall and night over, but Brady LaBeouf kind of manages to walk away from that one relatively unscathed.
Unbelievable for the 16 of Joey Doucette. As he joins the pacing line, I don't think he wants to get a black flag for pitting too early, so he's trying to nurse that truck around and keep it in the pacing line until the pit lane is open. So the 16 is going to be just trying to get that damaged truck around, but Ted Wade, Stephen Thomas, now the top 2. Brady LaBeouf assumes 3rd. Adam Newbert, Devin Painter, edge of the top 5. And with this yellow flag, nobody good to the end here, Ian, but 4 tire sets. I'm wondering if we see anybody chance it coming down into the pit lane here. It doesn't look like anybody at the front's thinking about it.
Nobody at the front, I think, would do that. You're just giving up track position at that point, but if you're later in the pack, you can take tires now and maybe just take fuel later, as Josh. That's something you can play. I don't think anybody took that strategy, but yeah, that's kind of surprised nobody did that towards the back of the pack, but I think the only person we're going to see on pit road is Joey Doucette, and kind of hope that repair time is under 30 minutes, Josh.
And even if it is, he is going to go at least 1, probably multiple laps down. Once again, no fast repairs for any of these drivers, so if it is a 30-minute repair, which is normally what it is for an engine damage of this type, he is maybe looking at getting back onto the track if he's lucky. I mean, if we go green flag to the end of this race, we're going to be at roughly about 35 minutes, roughly, if we go green all the way to the checkered flag. So it's just going to be difficult for Doucette, and he hasn't hit pit lane yet. I believe pit lane was open last time by, so not sure what the 16 is waiting on. But we will see when the 16 is going to inevitably get that damage fixed, because even if he tries to race like that, he cannot race with a damaged engine, especially that bad. It's not going to be enjoyable for you or anybody else on the racetrack around you.
No, I guess maybe race it till it blows up is possibly his strategy, but yeah, that's, you kind of mentioned if you're anybody's way when that happens, they're kind of going to have a bad time. So interesting strategy there by the 16, maybe just trying to get all he can out of that engine before it expires, Josh, but we'll see what happens here.
Yeah, he's still on the track, letting drivers go by. I don't know how much longer that engine's going to last. I think it's going to be
you'd have to imagine
4 laps until Ted Wade catches up to him.
Yeah, you'd have to imagine they would black flag him in this situation, but while he's bowling off now, maybe that happened.
There it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think it would last that long, and there's the tow back to the pit lane, which he could have started those repairs and avoided the tow completely if he would have came into the pit lane 2 laps ago. But that is beyond me, and he might know something we don't. I'm up here in the booth. I'm just talking. So I am not driving down on the track in one of these virtual trucks. But the drivers that are ready to go back. It's for the restart. They'll hit the Geico restart zone with Ted Wade on the inside, Stephen Thomas on the outside. The Dynamite restarts Ted Wade has been getting tonight. Does he get another? And oh yes, he does. Stephen Thomas will have to settle for side-by-side with Brady LaBeouf. They fight for second place back to turn 1.
And in turn one, Brady LaBeouf able to battle the inside of Stephen Thomas, the 23 truck on the outside. We've seen how good the 9 truck has been on restarts so far, but not able to clear the 23. And he's going to get freight trained right now behind the 99 of Devin Painter and kind of file in line as the field dives into turn 3, Josh.
Still side by side, a little bit further on back as they'll single file out for the most part, but Ted Wade, remember that last restart in when he pulled away to about 2 seconds in the nature of about a lap and a half? Well, it is less. It's still a good gap of 1 second as the 99 at Painter almost gets into the wall. Brady LaBeouf says, thank you very much. I'll take 4th, and Taylor Peacock wants a shot at the top 5 as the 81 dives to the inside. Can't get the move made by Devin Painter, and Painter holds on to P5, and now side by side with Peacock goes Michael McKinnon to the inside.
McKinnon goes to the inside. The 81 of Taylor Peacock already has the Darlington stripe on the outside here, and that's a tough tight place to be if you're trying to avoid another one. Is on the outside of another truck here. You've got the the 22, the DeWalt Matt Kenza throwback, now making a move to the inside there of Taylor Peacock. And once you kind of lose your momentum, Josh, you mentioned it's so hard to regain it again. That's what's kind of happening there on the 81 truck, just kind of getting freight trained farther and farther back in the field.
1.3 seconds the gap at the front, and McKinnon now fighting in 6th. Here comes Jose Luis Rivera behind, and the 20 coming with a big head of steam down the back straightaway as well. Couldn't go very far with it through turns 3 and 4. Kind of follows the 13 back up towards the wall, and Rivera cannot make a move for 6th place just yet as the field spaces their way out a good bit. Brady LaBeouf is on the back bumper of Adam Newbert, who just a few moments ago was able to get by the 9 machine. And Brady LaBeouf off of turn number 2 looks to the inside for the 4 of Newbert, side by side into turn 3. LaBeouf dives it in deep, slides up the racetrack, and holds on to P3.
That time the 9 truck was able to make that slide job work there off the corner in one corner instead of trying to make it side by side through another straightaway there. So he's able to get a much better run down the straightaway that time. Newbert's not able to get the run there. He's now under fire from the 99 truck there of Devin Painter coming out of turn 3 or turn 2.
Oh, and LaBeouf either just did or almost hit the wall again off of turn 2. He dove to the inside, almost about halfway down that Boeing backstretch to save that number 9 Chevy Silverado. He does, and now behind him, Adam Newbert, after losing that spot, is gonna be in a battle with the 99 at Painter relatively soon here through turns 1 and 2. Blend up towards the wall, and Newbert now with a good head of steam in that F-150, still trying to pull away from the 99. Is 2 throwback schemes, one that we're seeing for the first time tonight, and one that we've seen every single week here on the NASRA Triple M Pulling Truck Series, battling 4th and 5th.
Battling for 4th and 5th, Josh, but I think that LaBeouf really understands the importance here of trying to close the gap as much as he can on that final pit stop, because that stop, especially if it happens under green flag, is going to be absolutely crucial. Your time in and time off of pit road is going to be everything, and those seconds, especially if you get a bad run or bad run onto pit road, are going to be very crucial here coming down to that final stop.
Back into turn 3. Painter not with enough to have anything for the 4 of Adam Newbert. Speaking of not having anything for the driver in front, Stephen Thomas still 1.2 seconds back from Ted Wade, but 50 to go. We still have at least one more pit stop left, and I think the thing that these drivers are wondering now is, will it be under the green flag or will it be under the caution flag? The farther we go under a green flag condition in, of course, the better chance we have at staying green. So I don't know if we'll have another caution here as Painter is able to get by Newbert for 4th. If we do see another caution, it's going to at least be a 1-car or a 2-car incident. We're not going to see a pile up, but if we do see it, we're going to have to see it soon, because that pit window is going to be opening relatively quickly.
It does open relatively quickly, and if it does happen earlier in the run, Josh, that kind of limits your strategies you can do as well, because if it happens early in the stage, earlier in the fuel window, that it kind of kills your opportunities for taking 2 tires because you don't want to run those left sides as bare as you would if you do that now. But if it's later on in the run or possibly a green-white checkered situation, it opens up a lot more calls for these drivers. So it's kind of dynamic and fluid how this situation runs the farther we go into this race.
Michael McKinnon, is he blending back up onto the racetrack? He just went way down to the inside. I'm wondering if Devin Painter might have hit the wall and I might have just missed it. It looks like he also... Oh, yes, he did. Devin Painter did hit the wall coming off of turn number 2. Not a long time. It wasn't a harsh hit. It was enough to slow him down, and then McKinnon was able to get by. Same thing with Adam Newbert. That's why the 4 now scored 4th, and Painter scored 6th with McKinnon in between the two in P5. But take a look at the front of the field right now, and that gap for the race lead. Ted Wade's lead is starting to fall. 7.5 tenths between the 2 and the 23. I'm wondering if the danger fiddles are going to start to sound for Ted Wade at the front of the field, because here comes Stephen Thomas within 7 tenths.
Within 7 tenths, and I'm not exactly sure what happened there to the 2 truck, Josh. I'm not sure if lap traffic is starting to become a factor or if Stephen Thomas has found something in that 23 truck, but he's really running down the Ted Wade right now and trying to give him a challenge here, at least for the lead. But looks like Ted Wade is sort of starting to equalize the lap times back out, Josh. It's going to be interesting to watch this as it goes on.
5 tenths the gap now. What happened to the 2 at Ted Wade? Did he burn those tires up too quick? Did the 23 of Stephen Thomas maybe find something new in that 23 Toyota Tundra? Whatever happened, we've got a race on our hands now. 43 to go across the stripe this time, and within 6 tenths is the 23 of Thomas. This time by how much time is made up. Ted Wade actually wants a bit of a faster lap, but that gap is still closing through 1 and 2.
It almost makes me think, Josh, if Ted Wade here is possibly trying to kind of go into a very conservative saving mode here and kind of letting Stephen Thomas reel him in and then just trying to keep that gap at arm's length. It's an interesting development because we kind of saw Ted Wade just checking out from the field here. We've never seen a run like this with possibly a green flag stop in the middle. So interesting things happening here with 43 laps coming to 42 to go.
Under 5 tenths now the gap. We're inside of the fuel window to the end of the race now. The problem is that the way these tires wear at this track, Ian, they can't pit now, because then they would have to run 41 laps, maybe under green, maybe if we see cautions. Either way, they'll have to run basically a full fuel cycle on one set of tires. The tires are already crying after 35 laps on the track. They're going to need to run these tanks almost dry to have the freshest tires going into the end of this race as they possibly can.
Yeah, whatever problem the 2 of Ted Wade was having there, Josh, it seems to have evaporated now, because that gap over Stephen Thomas is over a second and a half here now. Again, as we see one truck having the pit road here with damage. I'm not entirely sure who that is.
That's the old pit road.
Really?
That's the backstretch pit road.
It is a pit road.
It's not the one he wants.
No.
It definitely isn't. Wondering if it's a VR driver stuck in the metaverse or something, but he ends up way down the inside. That's James Haney in the 55. I'm wondering, the 55 had damage, if the engine might have expired on that truck and he just had to find a place it did. That's exactly what happened going into turn number 1. Engine expires for the 55. He has to find a place to escape, and well, where's a good place to escape at Darlington? How about the abandoned old pit road?
Yeah, a courtesy dive to the abandoned pit road for the rest of the field. I guess you could say, Josh, that helps Ted Wade here at the front of the pack stay out, and Stephen Thomas now kind of reeling the gap back in. It's sort of fluctuating back and forth, Josh. I don't want to say that I'm right, but kind of feeding into my strategy here. I think Ted Wade is letting him reel him in and then kind of just stretching the gap as he sees fit.
Well, as Justin Lumpkin comes into the pit lane, I did take a look back at the replay, and Stephen Thomas did hit the wall in turns 3 and 4. So that definitely contributed to the gap going from about 5/10 to about a second and a half there for a moment. But Stephen Thomas trying to reel him back in, as you mentioned, Ian. But Justin Lumpkin, the first drivers of these lead lappers to go into the pit lane. Who's gonna follow him in? 38 to go. The end of the fuel run is not gonna be for another about 10 laps. Christopher Blanchard also gonna join him into the pit lane. Who's behind him? Looks like James Morris in the 47. Nobody from the top 10 electing to pit just yet. Wondering when they will, or if they're really gonna run these fuel tanks all the way dry.
It is kind of an interesting question you have to ask yourself when you're the leader of a race, Josh, is do you kind of come in early, or do you try to stretch the fuel window as long as you can, try to build that gap on the racetrack enough where you can take a pit stop and still come out as the leader of this race? But that's kind of one of the hardest decisions you have to make if you're in a situation like you are in Ted Wade, where you're the leader with 30, 35 laps to go, and you kind of dictate the pace for the rest of the top 10. You see some of these drivers farther down in the field now. 10th place, Brady LaBeouf, pit road, Jose Luis Rivera, and now the leader. Ted Wade is going to dive the pit road. That's going to give the lead over to Stephen Thomas, but we'll see how the rest of these stops cycle out, Josh.
Now does Stephen Thomas respond to this pit stop? Through 1 and 2 goes the 23. Is he thinking about pitting this time by? We are going to find out. To the Boeing backstretch. Now newly race leader, the 23 is Stephen Thomas. First time tonight anybody else has led under green flag conditions, and here comes the 23. So he responds immediately to the strategy, better than the Ferrari strategist in Formula 1. Into the pit lane goes the 23. Adam Newbert now in the 4 assumes the race lead.
And what's going to be the interesting thing to watch right now, Josh, is the rest of the drivers that haven't pit yet. Who's going to stretch it out the most? Will we see a driver a lap down, try to get his lap back, or will we see one of the drivers kind of farther back in the field maybe try to stretch this out as far as they possibly can and really try to put themselves in a track position where they can maybe take that 2-tire stop and try to gain some spots that way?
Stephen Thomas into his pit box. And Ted Wade trying to chase him down. A Ford F-150 goes into the pit lane. Who is that? With damage as well. The 4 machine into the pit lane. That is Adam Newbert. I thought it was a damaged truck, but that was just your race leader at the time hitting the pit lane. Ted Wade out of the pit lane, and with a considerable gap over Stephen Thomas here, the 9 of Brady LaBeouf barely able to beat the 23 to the punch. And now Wade is your net race leader. Brady LaBeouf net second. Stephen Thomas net third, as they still wait on McKinnon to come into pit. Chris Cinnamon comes in this time. Zach Hartwick still needs to pit, and Derek Kilgore escapes the racetrack. He's pitting this time, so that leaves just 2 drivers left to take their green flag stops with 32 to go.
That's huge right now for Brady LaBeouf too, Josh, because not only did that get him out in front of Stephen Thomas, but it kind of kills Stephen Thomas's momentum getting back up to speed here as well. So I think Stephen Thomas is going to run him down, but if you're Brady LaBeouf, you put yourself in a position to hang on the P2 and try, I guess, attempt to get the Ted Wade. I think we're going to look at that 2 car possibly in post-race inspection, Josh. I know these are fixed setup trucks, but that's kind of suspicious there from the 2 car, or the 2 trucks so far this race. He's been really, really fast.
The virtual trucks will be inspected by the virtual NASCAR officials, which I don't believe exist. So he might be getting away with some virtual cheating here. We're not actually saying that Ted Wade is cheating. Of course, that is very difficult to do in the iRacing service unless he has a grip.exe cheat. But again, not accusing Ted Wade of anything. Just he has been one of the dominant contenders in every single race that we have had this season, from Martinsville to Sonoma. I remember back to Homestead. He just ran into a couple of issues in middle portion of that race and ended up losing it. But every single time the 2 has hit the track, he has been in the contention for the race win. And right now, if he gets this win, of course, 29 laps, long time still to go as he dives back into turn 1. We're looking at a championship favorite at this point for the 2.
Absolutely. And right now, looking at the timing screen, it's kind of confusing because it's showing from Hartwig, the leader right now. But when they cycle out, at this point right now, Ted Wade's still going to have about a 2-second lead on Brady LaBeouf as you see him crossing the start-finish line right now, the two of Ted Wade. So even more of a lead, Josh, I think, than he had going into pit road.
Definitely looks like it. At about 2.5 seconds, about 2/10 added on to that, 2 seconds actually here, as everybody on fairly even playing field when it comes to tires. As Hartwig trying to play the long game as a bunch of lap vehicles go storming on by him. Not only a ton of damage to the 24, but we have an incident, which is exactly what Zach Hartwig was looking for. Bullock to the inside, the 17 involved, no caution flag comes out. We stay green with 28 to go, but another Darlington stack up in 1 and 2, pushes Hartwig to the pit lane, and Wade, LaBeouf, and Thomas will assume the top 3.
And I believe that's about the most trucks you could have in an incident, Josh, without the yellow flag coming out. That almost looked like a big one at Talladega from our vantage point here on the feed, but no yellow. We'll see a replay of what happened here. I believe it was going into turns 1 and 2. We'll see here. Yeah, just one truck. I don't know if he had help, the 17 truck there. If that was all by himself, Josh.
If he did have help, it didn't look like a ton of help. Let's take a look again. Through 1 and 2. Did the 4 hit him? No. Okay, so Bullock hit the wall outside of 1 and 2, then got pushed back into the 4 of Adam Newbert, and then ended up getting turned the 17. So another chain reaction wreck, which we mentioned it earlier. That's just kind of what happens here at Darlington with the track being laid out the way it is and having only about 3 seams to run at the top of the racetrack. You get those chain reaction wrecks with Newbert having absolutely nowhere to go into avoiding that incident, and that there was the contact with Bullock. How about the battle for second? 1.7 seconds removed from your race leader. 26 to go. LaBeouf and Thomas fighting for second.
25 laps ago this time by, Josh, and we watched the battle here between LaBeouf and the 9 truck and Thomas in the 23. But one thing that did do here was it slowed Ted Wade down a little bit, and it set up him at a position, Josh, where you see the lap trucks in front of him. He's going to have navigate lap traffic with 25 laps to go here in this race. So this battle is going on behind him, which is in his favor right now, but he's going to have to navigate his way through cleanly and hope there's not a wreck in front of him that brings out another yellow flag and stacks this field back up if you're Ted Wade.
Sitting on board now with the 23 of Stephen Thomas. We mentioned his struggles this season. Well, I don't really want to say struggles because he has been consistent. A lot of top 5s. He's well and good above the cut line for the playoffs at about 79 points coming into tonight. But he's still looking for that first moment in victory lane. And if he wants to catch up to Ted Wade, which he did before those green flag pit stops happened, he's gonna need to get by the 9 of Brady LaBeouf through 1 and 2. He just cannot make that move work. He's still running in the 9's tire tracks, which he can't do for much longer. Ted Wade's looking to pull away.
And diving into 3 and 4, the 23 of Stephen Thomas is continuing to try to build that run on the 9th truck of Brady LaBeouf. He hasn't been able to do it yet so far, as you mentioned, Josh. He kind of steps out there. But now he gets loose off of 4. That's really going to give the advantage here to the 23 heading into 2. They're going to be side by side into 2. The 23 is going to try to get the run here. He's going to kind of back out and going to try to reset again here coming down the backstretch, Josh.
Wondering if he backed out to avoid an incident, or I'm wondering if he backed out because he did not have, it just went into turn number 1. It looked like he tried to arc the corner a little bit more and go under those white dash lines. Maybe ended up getting a little bit loose, and he did back out because the 9 of LaBeouf ran about the middle line and ended up just kind of blocking where the 23 was going to arc up and go, about right there where they're running right now. And that seam as LaBeouf gets loose on the outside line. Here comes the 23 to try and challenge again.
Yeah, the 9 truck has been getting really loose, coming off of 2 and coming off of 4, Josh, and that's really been the difference between him and the 23 of Thomas right now. Is they've been able to run pretty similar lap times, but right now you see the 9 truck getting to the wall, and that's going to be able to get the 23 by him without even really any effort from him, Josh.
So the 23 to second place yet again. 2.5 seconds. The last time the 23 ended up in second, he caught up close to the back bumper of Ted Wade. It was about a half-second gap before the mistake came in for Stephen Thomas, and he ended up hitting the wall right about where he's going through now. 19 to go, this time by the start-finish. Does he have enough time? Does he have enough speed in that 23 machine to catch up? Last time by, he was about a 10th faster than Ted Wade. The 23 is on a mission. Big question is, can he catch your race leader? Gets a little bit too far up on that outside groove off of 2.
Yeah, the 9 truck holding him up there for a few laps really definitely didn't help him. And right now you see how aggressively he's trying to drive that truck, kind of gets into the wall himself. And really, it's kind of a back and forth between these two trucks. Whoever gets the advantage between these two tries to overdrive their truck and ends up giving the advantage right back to the other one, as we see the 9 make the move on the inside pretty easily.
So LaBeouf comes back on the 23. Most interestingly, both of them are catching Ted Wade. Of course, when they run side by side, they're only going to slow each other down. But either running single file or making these quick slide job moves, they're still getting that gap down. Not as quickly as they would if it was just single car, but they are still kind of pinching away at that gap. Last time by, Wade did run a little bit of a faster lap, but you can see that gap at about 3 seconds. That is down from about 4 seconds, more than 4 seconds where it was a few laps ago.
Yeah, and you got to think, if you're one of these drivers, Josh, you got to get on your spotter and say, hey, talk to the 9 or talk to the 23. Let's work together and try to catch Ted Wade, because right now, if we keep battling each other, we're only going to be battling for second and third. There's no way either of us are going to win this race.
And of course, second and third still paying some great points, but if there's anybody who doesn't want to hear about points, it's Stephen Thomas. 79 above the cut line. The only driver, the other driver that doesn't want to hear about points is, unfortunately, the driver out of this race, 29 to 78 of Keith Haney, who is 83 points good to the cut line coming into tonight. Brandon LaBeouf, he also doesn't want to hear the points talk, 69 above the cut line. Jacob Klinkart, unfortunate end of the night for him, mounting the back stretch pit wall, and ends up 27th scored currently, 66 above the cut line. Adam Newbert, before he ran into the issues and has now scored 1 lap down, 16th. He is about 41 points above the cut line, as side by side again gives second place back to Stephen Thomas, as they still have a lot of work to do to catch up to Ted Wade. 2.8 seconds is the gap, and oh, by the way, the 2 might have some lap traffic coming his way as well.
Yeah, lap traffic, again, is going to continue to be a factor the farther and farther we go into this run, Josh. We've had a surprisingly long green flag run here. Don't want to jinx it, but the 23, again, is able to find that long run speed and is really trying to start to run down Ted Wade and making a really good run of it right now so far. And you can see him trying to hug that outside line as close to the wall as he possibly can. But not only is Ted Wade going to have to deal with lap traffic, Stephen Thomas is going to fight his way through some if he's going to hope to catch Ted Wade, Josh.
Yeah, Ted Wade now through a majority of that lap traffic, and he leaves it for the 23 of Stephen Thomas to deal with. That's 3 trucks separating these 2 drivers, which is a ton of time that the 23 of Stephen Thomas is going to lose. Of course, the lap cars don't necessarily have to let him by. Of course, it is generally a gentleman's agreement that you do kind of don't really race the drivers that are on the lead lap too hard, and you can see him working his way around. I believe that is the 47 of James Morris, and Morris doesn't makes it too difficult as he ends up slamming the wall. Side by side in front, that's Lucas Whitehead and Cody Knott, that now Stephen Thomas is gonna have to navigate his way by.
When you mentioned that gentleman's agreement, Josh, where lap traffic generally will kind of get out of your way, especially if you're one of the leaders with this many laps left in a race, but we kind of saw it happen there. One of the trucks got loose as Stephen Thomas made the move around him. Sometimes you don't mean to make the move as lap traffic that ends somebody's race, but it just kind of happens. So even though people are moving out of your way, it's still nerve-wracking if you're a lap car and if you're the leader as well.
It'll be 10 laps to go this time by, as the laps continue to wind down from virtual Darlington. as Stephen Thomas is working his way through this lap traffic, Ian, he's still catching, or he was, at least until he got held up by Lucas Whitehead there. But that time by, a little bit slower for Stephen Thomas, but only a 10th slower, with the 88 of Whitehead holding him up. 10 to go. If we get a caution, I think that might be Stephen Thomas's best opportunity, but more lap traffic kind of laying themselves up for the two of Ted Wade to work his way by. But just for a second there, under 2 seconds the gap. He might need a yellow flag with 9 to go, unfortunately, but if we do get a yellow flag, this is going to be an exciting run to the end.
It will be an exciting run because we haven't seen that 23 truck really be a short run car so far, or a short run truck so far. He's really been making most of his moves on the long run. But something interesting I've kind of noticed is most of the trucks are moving out of the way. As we see the 00 of Huck Wigington move right now, is most of the trucks have been moving out of the way for the leader pretty expeditiously, but when it comes to second on back, Josh, they're not moving out of the way quite as quickly as they are for Ted Wade.
But 1.8 seconds that gap. In clean air, Ted Wade,
he is faster.
In clean air, the 23 is faster. I think Ted Wade might have burned his tires up again, trying to work past the lapped vehicles.
Yeah,
5 seconds, and the gap is still closing. With 8 to go, does Stephen Thomas have enough time? 7 to go this time by. Wade almost hits the wall through 3 and 4.
Yeah, he's reeling him in, and I was thinking the exact same thing, Josh. In clean air, the 23 is much faster than Ted Wade right now. But once it gets into traffic, it seems like Ted Wade is having an easier job of navigating the lap traffic as they progress farther into this race, and that's really been the main difference right now. But we'll see if Stephen Thomas can kind of get himself a run right now, and you can kind of see right now as we watch him dive down the backstretch into the 3 and 4, the gap that Stephen Thomas is really closing right now. That 23 is on rails.
I think he needs more time. 6 to go here. He just got held up by another lapped vehicle. That time it looked to be, I believe, the 17 of Bullock. Yes, it was. He got held up again. That gap goes back to 1.4 seconds. 5 to go this time by the stripe. And you can see staring in to the Darlington, South Carolina sunset into 3 and 4. Unless Ted Wade hits the wall again, which he gets close to. You can see that gap going down at the apex of 3 and 4. With 5 to go, he needs a mistake or a yellow flag if Stephen Thomas wants to get this race win.
And not only that, Josh, but the 23 of Stephen Thomas doesn't have to make a mistake as well. If he makes a mistake, it's all but over for him with 5 laps to go. So for the 23, your adrenaline's pumping right now, your heart racing. You probably have some shakes right now in the cockpit of that 23 truck, but you got to try to drive smooth and drive some qualifying laps right now because you are catching him, but you can't make a single mistake coming 4 laps to go this time by.
Peacock lets both of your leaders go on by. Ted Wade now having to deal with Christopher Blanchard there in front of him. Blanchard gonna not lay up too easy. He forces Ted Wade to go the long way around, which fortunately here at Darlington is the preferred line. But 8 tenths now, the gap, make it 7 tenths as here comes the 23 of Stephen Thomas. 3 to go at the line, he hits the wall in 3 and 4, and that might have just solidified the win for the 2, as look at the gap now to 1 second between the 2 and the 23.
Oh, and that's such a shame for Stephen Thomas, Josh, because we had a shootout there with a few laps to go, and we might still have one. You can see on our timing screen there that he's really reeling him quite quickly now, and you can see the gap on your screen there. It's about 10 to 15 truck lengths right now, so it's not over yet, but it was going to be a lot closer than it is right now.
2 laps to go. Clean air between the 2, but now he has to gain back 4 tenths a lap. 4 tenths on this lap, 4 tenths on the white flag lap, while also passing Ted Wade. It was gonna be close, but it's the same mistake that Stephen Thomas made before the green flag pit stops of this stage happened. He got too overzealous through 3 and 4, ended up hitting the wall, lost so much momentum, and unfortunately for him, when he made that mistake the first time, he had time to make it up, but white flag is in the air. It's 1 to go from Darlington, and he is out of time.
It's gonna be close, Josh, but I think you're right. He is just out of time, and again, that is quite unfortunate for Steve Thomas in the 23 truck. He had such a great truck there, especially in the second half of this run, but I believe you're right. I think Ted Wade's got him here.
The gap still falling. If he had 5 more laps, he might have been able to do it, but it's 3 wins on this season for Ted Wade, and the 2 machine solidifies himself as a championship favorite as he wins from Darlington.
Oh, and then what a race that was setting up to be, Josh, between the 2 of the 23 truck there. I feel so bad for the 23 that he got into the wall, and for everybody watching at home too, because that was going to be quite a shootout there to the end. But I mentioned it, nobody can make a mistake there, and it came down to Ted Wade didn't make a mistake, Josh, and so far that's been the story of his season. He hasn't made mistakes, and he's gone to victory lane 3 times so far this year.
A winner at Martinsville, a winner at Sonoma, and a winner at Darlington. Those 3 tracks speak anything to you. What it speaks to me is Ted Wade is the driver to beat when the tracks pose a challenge. Martinsville, Sonoma, Darlington, 3 of the toughest tracks to ever race on in the iRacing service, and Ted Wade has won at all 3.
Yeah, and you mentioned it. It's just a combination of, I would say, all the most challenging tracks we've had pretty much so far on the circuit. Martinsville is the most technical and challenging short track because it's flat and there's a whole bunch of braking. It's not like Bristol where you're kind of just letting off the throttle the whole time. He won on the most technical road track in Sonoma, and now one of the most technical intermediate ovals here at Darlington, with the different baking, the different turns in the corners, and the egg shape we have here. Just like you mentioned, Josh, kind of the man to beat, because really so far he's getting it done at all the hardest places we have on the schedule.
The sun goes down, the lights come up, and the checkered flag flies from Darlington. Ted Wade is your winner by 3/10 over Stephen Thomas, who gave him an honest run for his money, but was not able to get there. Brady LaBeouf finishes 3rd. We'll speak to all 3 of your top podium finishers in just a moment in our post-race show. Devin Painter and Michael McKinnon, 4th and 5th, round out your top 5. Chris Cinnamon, Justin Lumpkin, Jose Luis Rivera, Christopher Blanchard, and Taylor Peacock gonna round out your top 10. Lucas Whitehead, Cody Knott, James Morris, Zach Hartwick, and Derek Kilgore rounding out your top 15, with Huck Wigington, Adam Newbert, who ended up having more issues towards the end of the race there for the 4. Brandon Bullock, Jason Morales, and Robbie Richards gonna round out your top 20. And everybody back from here, unfortunately, getting caught up in incidents. James Haney, Joey Doucette, Dana Shepard, Matt Rudder, Raul Meza, the top 25. Eric Zimmerman, Jacob Klinkart, Brian Abbott, Keith Haney, and Adam Cantwell, with 31st going to Tony Smith, who was caught up in an incident. And then Jonathan Munda, 32nd, never took the green flag. And TJ Moore, 33rd, race control for the NASRA Triple M Pulling Truck Series. So as we wait a moment for our race winner Ted Wade to join us, we'll go ahead and start with 3rd place and get to talking with Brady LaBeouf as he joins us in the broadcast booth now. And Brady, a solid run for you in the 9 machine. I know, with no wins on the season and racing right now for points in the playoffs, that's really all you could ask for tonight from Darlington, but you showed some solid speed there in the 9. Congrats.
Yeah, thank you guys. Man, practice a lot this week to prep for this, and I thought I had something for Ted. I showed good speed, definitely in the beginning of the run and on the long run after 35 laps. I was really happy with the tire wear, and just that damage with Joey, us racing there, and I believe what stage the final stage, it just hurt my truck.
But going through this race, and you had the pace to at least keep up with Stephen Thomas, and you both, as a collective, were catching Ted Wade towards the end of that race. Does this give you a little bit more confidence heading into Atlanta, Indianapolis, a lot more of these traditional oval tracks on the calendar? Does this give you a little bit of hope that you can grab a win before we head into the playoffs at the end of the season?
Oh, most definitely. I'm very confident right now. I've had a couple of bad weeks the past couple of weeks, so it's good to get a top three, and at a truck that at a track that I usually struggle at. But yeah, I mean, it definitely gives you confidence going into the next couple of weeks. But he's just having a phenomenal season to start with. I mean, everybody in the garage will tell you that they wish they were having as much luck as he is right now.
Well, we go into the All-Star race at Eldora in 1 week's time, but the next time we're going to be fighting for points is at the Atlanta Motor Speedway. Confidence level heading into that. Are you going to put in as much practice as you did for Atlanta as you did tonight?
Well, with the new update, it's practically a super speedway race again. So with us just leaving Talladega and going to that one, I think I'm going to use some different strategy, but I always feel good at the super speedways.
We'll see what you can do. And hopefully we'll be talking to you again after the race in Atlanta. And we'll see what you can do in the All-Star race going to the dirt track of Eldora. We'll see you in 1 week's time. Congrats.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you.
Brady LaBeouf, third place finish for him tonight. And we continue on now to second place. Stephen Thomas standing by with our Ian Fisher.
Well, Steven, you were fast all night long. Came up 0.3 of a second short there to Ted Wade there at the end. If anybody had it for him tonight, it was you or Brady LaBeouf. And your truck really seemed to come on there in the second half of the race. What did you find there on the track?
I just had to enter the corners a little bit better to get out of them a lot faster. You can rocket out of these corners if you enter them a certain way, is what I felt like I found halfway through the race.
And you really found that speed there, and you were reeling Ted Wade there in at the end. And I know it kind of hurts a little bit to talk about, but it seemed like you had him there with 5 to go. What did you see from your perspective, and what kind of cost you the race there?
Man, I lock up the darn playoffs this season if I do not hit the wall after Brady lets me by. I don't know if we got that on broadcast or not, but man, Brady, being the respectful old man that he is, let me by because he seen I was faster, man, and that was it. All I had to do was run him down and put the bumper to him if I had to and win this race and go ahead and lock in the playoffs. But I goofed it up and hit the wall, let Brady right back, and that put me like 4 seconds behind Ted. To be honest with you, I didn't even think it would be I didn't think I'd catch him. So that just tells you how much faster I was than him. I was 4 seconds behind with 8 to go and ran him down or something in that nature. But yeah, this one sucked. It's hard to swallow. I should have won my first race this season.
Yeah, and I have to agree with you. The 23 truck really was the truck to beat there, really in the final stretch of this race. And I think just a tap of the wall there and one mistake, like you mentioned, was all that it took. And you talked about the playoffs and the pressure and how it would have locked you in. But next week we do go to Eldora. You guys are on the dirt there running, and it's going to be a fun race, the All-Star race. Points aren't involved. What are you looking forward to there?
I'm actually looking forward to this one. I think we didn't do it last season. I think we did it the season before. And me and Keith Bradley, unfortunately he didn't make it tonight, but me and Keith Bradley were putting on a show in first and second, and we ran into some lap cars and got taken out. So I didn't think I was going to have a chance on dirt, but to keep up with Keith Bradley, a dirt driver, I got some confidence going into the All-Star race, just to go in there and have some fun and relax, and just that's kind of weird saying have some fun and relax on a dirt track with this truck, but fortunately we get to do that because it's an All-Star race.
And that's the 23 Stephen Thomas coming home P2 tonight. A tough pill to swallow, but he's looking forward to Eldora next week there and having some fun on the dirt.
Yeah, for sure, man. I appreciate everything, guys. You at the broadcast for putting this on, and I want to thank NASRA, Triple M Pulling, Butt Kicker, NASRA 360, Paltz Poppers, Starbase Comics, all the sponsors involved to make this league run so smoothly. And I'd like to thank everybody that watches, my grandma and grandpa that watches every race, and my kids and stuff. And yeah, I'd like to thank Family Handyman on the truck, Straight Powerhouse, and all my teammates, Taylor, Joey. Unfortunately, he was running really good tonight, and unfortunately had got into an accident with Brady, and Chris. Yeah, and thanks, guys. Y'all have a good night.
Yeah, thanks, Steven. And Josh, a tough pill for him to swallow, like I said, but it's good to see that everybody's still having fun and looking forward to Eldora next week.
A lot of positivity from the 23, I think, is what we can take away. And we now are able to talk with your race winner tonight, the 2 of Ted Wade. Third time we're speaking to you as a race winner, Ted, and a great run from you from Darlington. Nobody even able to touch you.
Yeah, thanks, guys. It was a long, stressful race, that's for sure. I'm sweating to death right now in this rig. I'm just glad everything came together there. Thought Steven was going to get me there at the end. I was definitely mirror driving, watching him, and he made a few mistakes, thankfully.
Well, even with the mirror driving, didn't seem like you were making many mistakes up at the front. And where did that speed for you think came from? Was it the amount of practice laps you were putting in? Is it just the amount of times you've run this track in this truck in the past and that you felt confident coming into tonight?
Usually the more technical tracks I feel more confident at. And this being one of them, I knew I could at least get a top 5 out of here. I didn't expect to come in here and win. I just wanted to come in, try to put in some solid laps. I did practice all week, but you never know what it's going to be like come race time.
Well, now 3 wins for you this season, slingshotting yourself towards the playoffs. All-star race at Eldora. What are you thinking when we take these trucks to the dirt?
They're not too bad. I actually haven't ran them in probably a couple years. It was the old body style, so it should be interesting.
Well, we hope to see you in the All-Star race, and we'll see what you can do when we go back to points racing at the Atlanta Motor Speedway. Congrats on your 3rd win of the season tonight, Ted.
Thanks, Josh. I'd like to give Dan's Top Notch Heating and Cooling a shout out here. Breezy Racewear, Over the Top Designs, NASRA, Triple M Pulling, everybody over at NASRA. You guys here at Racecraft, especially John Hedrick too, also at Over the Top Designs, for putting me in this Terry Labonte throwback. I thought it looked pretty good, and appreciate it, guys.
Great looking throwback in the car tonight and all the other throwbacks that we saw. Congratulations again to Ted Wade, your race winner tonight from the virtual Darlington Raceway. And as we kind of put a bookend to this race tonight in showing again, Ted even talked about it. He's confident on these technical tracks, and 3 wins on the season. With everybody else even having a win, only having 1, he's solidifying himself now as a driver that we're going to be talking about all the way up until the championship finale in Las Vegas.
Oh, absolutely. And especially when you put 3 wins on the board this early in the season, and I think you're one to talk about in the championship for sure. But I don't know about you, Josh, but I'm really looking forward to the next week. These drivers can kind of relax for a week and just kind of go out there and have some fun on the dirt out there at Eldora. And that's really going to be fun for not only the drivers, but you and I, and everybody at home as well. It's going to be one to look forward to. And I don't know who's going to win that one. I don't know if Ted Wade could race on the dirt, but maybe he'll prove he can win there as well.
Well, you mentioned it, Ian. Next week at the virtual Eldora Speedway, we're not going racing for points. We're going racing for All-Star Night. And the best of the NASRA Triple M Pulling Truck Series will go racing. It's not dirt late models. It's definitely not dirt sprint cars, not even dirt street stocks. We're taking these trucks to the dirt, which they race so much different than any other vehicle you can throw on dirt in. It truly is a big challenge, which luckily no points on the line. Drivers are going to go as hard and as aggressive as they can to be called an all-star.
Oh yeah, and it's interesting too, because there might be a dirt track ringer out there, Josh. We have no idea. So one of these guys that maybe is maybe on their first season of competition here, or second season, really trying to find their feet on the asphalt oval, is maybe somebody who grew up really just racing on these dirt ovals, and it's their time to shine. So going to be exciting to see what these drivers do with no points on the line, and I'm looking forward to it next week.
And make sure you tune in next Friday, August 26th, same time of 9 p.m. Eastern, around the time we'll take the green flag. That race and every race available for you live on Racecraft TV. For Zach Johnson down in the virtual production trailer, and for my colleague Ian Fisher, my name is Joshua Lee. Congratulations to Ted Wade. He wins the NRE Power Systems 200 from virtual Darlington. And we go all-star racing from Eldora in 1 week's time. Make sure you tune in for more of the NASRA Triple M Pulling Truck Series.